This is Caroline Kennedy on NBC Today with Matt Lauer. Now that I'm going to move back here in this my surroundings here when I'm lucky enough to have a place to live, I want to say this. Caroline Kennedy is ambassador to Japan, and there's a lot that hasn't been told about any of this mess, especially when they can have her on and the media has totally covered up about me. My dad, Edward VIII, never married Wallace Simpson. He was married to Claudia Ruth O'Keefe of Irish. I'm sorry I've got this on, and I'm 78 years old, and I have had everything done to me, every law broken. And I found out in '83, I was in a political campaign to replace Larry McDonald, Congressman Doctor from Atlanta, Georgia. When his plane, the passenger plane, went down, the KAL, I should turn the TV down, 31st of '83. It was after then Mr. Flynn had been shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and I was doing a medical malpractice book. I'm going to have to turn this around. I don't know how that looks. I came back, and it's early in the morning. I went to have some coffee, and this was on. And it's really, let me just say this. I wanted to get this up, and it's beyond belief because the press is so controlled by the Rockefellers. They helped kidnap me. I found out in late '83. They had kidnapped me. The Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Bilderbergers. Joe Kennedy that's JFK, that's her grandfather, was appointed ambassador to England in '36. That's when the plot to take down my father really went into full force. Now, my father was married to my mom. In '37, they had him. Well, he abdicated in December of '36, but he was married to my mom, and it wasn't to marry Wallace Simpson. She married an imposter. And all his crimes he committed, his behavior was attributed to my father, when that's not the way it was at all. My father was with my mom. I was born in '39, kidnapped in '41, and the Kennedys were a big part of it. Her father, Caroline's father, flew into England. He flew the plane in the Army. He flew in there. I'm listening to that. I should have turned it off. He flew into, he stayed at the embassy and went before Parliament. Can you believe this? The Kennedys actually had that much power and went before Parliament and kidnapped me and helped take down my father. There was an addendum to my father's forced abdication stating, this is hard to take knowing the life, and I hope it's shoved so everybody, I hope and pray before I die, before everybody, so they have to face what this country has done. And this woman sitting up here, she's ambassador to Japan. Her dad and her grandfather helped take out the Japanese. Now she's pretending she's a friend. Anyway, they kidnapped me, the Jews. Rockefeller appointed Kennedy. And let me get this in. Everything changed when they kidnapped me. The day I was born, I was born Victoria II, heir to the British Crown. So I am the legal heir. George VI, my uncle's brother, is illegal. He helped in my kidnapping, giving access to me. So these are a bunch of thugs. Winston Churchill helped to destroy files, helped take my dad down. And by the way, he was also, Winston Churchill, friends with Eisenhower back then, who was the the general. I'm not sure of his title right at the moment. I don't have it before me. My whole thing is all this has been done, me brought over here and given the name of a twin, and my hostage money and the terror they did to me and my children, Mark and Scott, who are heirs after me. is so horrific. I hope the world has to see what the Americans are really like. And I want to say this. I was put out on the street after I tried to do that book about medical malpractice and mind control. And Larry Flint was shot then. It was a program shooter in Lawrenceville, Georgia. Later, I'm flown out to his place in that campaign. But anyway, well, let me just skip and cut to the chase. I was put out on the street and things done to me all my life, really. I look back and I didn't know why, that are so criminal. And I came up to Roanoke October the 20th of 86, and my mom and dad were still alive then. The imposter that became the illegal title of Duke of Windsor was buried in 72 at Frogmore, Windsor Castle. So dig him up. But there's not, and get his DNA, I guess, but that's not, the Brits told me, I know who I am. It's who kidnapped me. And now I turn this over to social media thinking, because the media is controlled by the Rockefellers. Guess who owns Facebook? Mark Zuckerman. He's David Rockefeller's grandson. So you've got the global government that's all tied you up and you don't know it. They just haven't totally shoved it into full force now. After they kidnapped me, and the addendum stated, and it's legal, that I'm heir after my, that I would inherit. It wouldn't disinherit because my father meant to come back. And it's legal. They kidnapped me then in 41, brought me to Moulton, Alabama, and gave me the name of a twin, Peggy Ann Dempsey. I married a Childers. And where they put me was such a pigsty and the horror. But I wanted to say this, too. I ended up having to live on the Appalachian Trail up here at Roanoke. I came here in 86, October, and it was cold. I have been kept homeless, penniless, besides all the other things, and I can't get an attorney to touch it. The second winter I spent, I believe, which would, I don't know, I think it was 83. I was up at Full Heart and I'm a hiker shelter. And I would get run from there, and I did a big part of the trail. I was back and forth just having, if I could get a tent, and I finally did, and a sleeping bag finally, to have a place to put it down and have a little peace for a night or two. Forget the bears and all the other stuff up there. The hiker, the Appalachian Trail people were the worst. Really mean, and the Rangers were. So anyway, nobody took into consideration and stop what was happening to me so that I had a home, that the law worked for me. Remember, the day I was born, I was the wealthiest woman probably in the world, and they made a real pauper, and now I'm going to get to this. Because I've put so many of these up, and I've put information and documents with it. But this morning, it's just too much watching that woman get up there and lie, and the press has covered all this up. They don't think taking out a monarch and lying with character assassination, kidnapping his child. They certainly didn't mind telling all about the Lindbergh kidnapping. And here I found out, and I've told it. I put it up on YouTube, Facebook. I've sent it to George Norrie. I've taken it to the press, and this also includes my doing the book on mind control. And therein is, if they're ever forced to tell it before the world, that's what takes them down. So, I wanted to say this. Nothing's funny. It's been held to me. I can hardly stand upright at the moment from all that's been done to me. But I wanted to put up that, I guess I do. I'm so tired and sick at the moment. I'm going to have to just stop it because that's enough putting it up. Can't think right at the moment. I'm so tired, and I've tried to put it all up on, but yeah, I do remember. Little Miss Caroline's on there. In 90, I'd been up there 2 winters, maybe at the most, and I hadn't gotten together tents and things like that to sleep in. And it was so cold up there. It's cold down here in Roanoke, much less up on top of the mountain. But it was early spring, and I was kept without food or anything. I couldn't find shelter. Jobs were shut down. And literally, I was walking from one place to the other, town to the other, trying to find a shelter to sleep a night or two before you run out. And nobody would listen, even though I had the documents, and Larry Flint did an endorsement that was really good, said I knew who was responsible for his shooting in Lawrenceville, etc. So I would show that because people knew he was shot. And it was a program shooter. I was trying to let them know why I was in the condition, and that the powers that be, and it's the global government, the Rothschilds that kidnapped me, had me shut down. And guess who comes up the old trail then from Mountain Pass? It walks up, and it's a kind of a stuff climb there, and there's two of them. They got a backpack, look like hikers. Got up to the top, and I said, "You look like JFK's son, John Kennedy Jr." He laughed and said, "That's who I am." He was standing at front of Full Heart Knob and at the picnic table. And I said, "No, you're teasing me." So I started telling him, well, before I started telling him, he said this was his friend, and that was the one that was his close friend. I can't remember his name. Anyway, my point is that he had a backpack, and he had come, they said that they come down to especially see how I lived. I don't remember if they said how they made me live, but that was his point. They kidnapped me, his dad did, and it's a friggin' joke to all of them. And he said something. I said I had lived up there and frozen. You could tell that, and starved. He had peanuts and everything that he had stuffed in his backpack. Did you think he offered one bite? Walked off, and they didn't go any further. They probably turned around, made a circle, and went back to Roanoke and flew in on the plane. I'm sure they did. Now then, I want to make a point here. Somebody got him. Somebody got him in this whole mess. Twins. They gave me the name of a twin when they brought me over here. The twins were dead, Peggy and Carl. Their mother killed them. They were illegitimate. Lina Dempsey. And I put all this up in the birth certificates from Montgomery, Alabama, where the twins' birth certificates were actually marked through, which is illegal because I have to use Peggy's. They're marked through, and they even had different birth dates than they gave me when they put me here. Okay, so twins have to do with a lot of these murders that I was talking about, the mind control murders, like Gabby Gifford was married to Mark, twins, Mark and Scott Kelly, NASA astronauts, okay? Mark and Scott are my son's names. And Gabby was shot, and there was about 12 in Tucson, Arizona, but you get into patterns. So later, a few years later, John Jr. Kennedy, and he married a twin, and one of the twins' name was Caroline. But anyway, he and his wife went down in the plane. Now then, they think it's a joke, and you have no idea, and most of you don't even care here in this country what's happened to me and my family and my country. Just look at it. So I'm going to leave it at that. Somebody up there played Get Back for me a little.